So I'm just finishing up 2 weeks here in La Palma, which is kind of my first training camp of the year for my races coming up. In May I've got the race here, Transvulcania. It's 70k, like 4,500 meters of climbing, and it's probably going to take me like anywhere from 9 to 11 hours, I would have thought. I don't know. But my thoughts are, I guess the first thought is the course is even harder than I thought it would be. Like the terrain is so much slower than you can imagine. It's like really steep everywhere. It's deep sand in places, so you can't get much traction. It's windy, it's hot, everything you can think of that makes a race hard, it's got. So yeah, that's kind of the first thing that pops into mind about what I've learned so far about the course. What else? I think if I'm going to do well, the training's got to change slightly. I'm going to need to have better muscular endurance, basically. So there's lots to say. It's really steep, and it's slow terrain, and you just got to be able to grind out like a relatively slow jog, which at the moment is just too much for me with the steepness and the length of the climbs. So the training needs to be more focused at more steep, slow but longer stuff, really, if I'm going to do well. Which is completely different to basically the first race as well I've got coming up in Croatia. Climbs are like 400 meters, whereas the climbs in this is the first one's 2,000 meters. So yeah, that's a slightly different type of training, I think, to do well anyway, at least. I guess another thought is I've probably booked the race a year too soon, in all honesty, because it's 70k, but it's probably one of the hardest 70ks in the world, I would have thought. You know, my first race in Croatia is only 2,000 meters of climbing, and I guess the terrain, I haven't looked at the terrain yet, but I'm guessing it's going to be much easier to run on. Whereas this is like 4,500 meters climbing. And it was won in 7 hours and 2 minutes last year, whereas the Croatia race was won in like 5 hours, and I think those guys who won it could have done it faster if they wanted to. So yeah, there's that. What was my other thoughts? Just trying to think. I guess the obvious stuff, really. Fueling is going to be important. You know, I just need to eat like as much as I can constantly to keep going. And the other thought was, which I kind of thought yesterday, is quite a lot of the course, well, the middle section's above 2,000 meters. And I did notice I was struggling for breath. But if I took a sip of my drink and kind of missed the breath, I'd almost like start hyperventilating for 2 seconds because of the altitude, I think. So yeah, I'm wondering if I'm gonna have to do some more kind of altitude training. I am going over to Tenerife hopefully in a few weeks' time, and I'll be based up at 1,700 meters, which should help. So I'm thinking maybe my lead up to the race would be in Tenerife possibly. Oh, and kind of the last big one is weight. Like, I'm never going to be able to compete with these guys, to be honest. Not, well, genetics, but then also, if you just look at the weights of these guys, like, for Beachy Head, I was 71 kilograms at 7% body fat. Kilian Jornet is 56 kilograms. It's just crazy. I could never get down to that weight, like, ever. I'm just too muscly, naturally, compared to these guys. But it does show, I think, when I came out on holiday here, I was around 76, 77, so I am quite far off my race weight. But it just shows, like, the climbing and everything any extra weight is just slowing you down. So I will have to be as light as possible for the race. But I just don't see how I can get any lower than 70 kilograms really for me. Yeah. And the other thing on the weight part, when I was out here, I was having to carry like 5 or 6 litres of water, sometimes 7 litres of water, because I was out for like 7 or 8 hours, some of these runs, and there's no access to water. So at least all the times I've done so far, even though they're so slow, have been with carrying like a load of water that I wouldn't have to carry on the race day. So yeah, the weight thing is kind of worrying me a little bit, because I don't see how I'm going to basically cut my times by a lot without getting a lot lighter. But yeah. And then the final last thought is, which I was thinking in the gym, is that small difference, like small improvements, will make a big difference over the distance, like time wise. So if I can just get slightly better at climbing, that could knock like half an hour to an hour off my race time. Yeah, so I just need to just dial in the training a little bit and hope that all these little small things add up to a massive jump in time to what I think I can currently do. Because I think what I can currently do is around 10 hours for the course, which, you know, it's kind of good for the general population, but it's rubbish compared to the good guys. Not that I'll ever be at that level, but I still want to do better than 10 hours, but I'm not sure how I can do it at the moment. Yeah, so that's some ramblings about what I think about the race. I'm glad I come out here though, because I think seeing the course, you can't do well without seeing the course. I think, for me personally anyway, if you're going to do well in these races, you need to know what you're up against. And if I didn't come out here, if I just trained in the UK, I would have, and then turned up on race day, I think after the first climb I'd be mentally broke, and that would be the end of the race for me pretty much. At least I now know what, I've seen all the course basically. I know what's the challenge ahead kind of thing, because it's a mental battle mostly. So yeah, so I'm glad I've come out here, but there's a lot of work to do. So yeah, back in the UK now for a few weeks, and then maybe back out to Tenerife.